Hello, everybody. Welcome to the third day of our online conference, World Teachers Day. I'm very excited to share this session with our colleague, Christopher Graham. Chris, today we're going to be in for a treat. We will be talking about how to make sustainability our daily practice. So if you were part of 2 previous days, you know that this year we are focusing on sustainability and climate action and how can we introduce these notions into our daily lives and also our ELT practices, our classroom environment, our textbook, course materials, and so on. I'm personally very passionate about this topic, and even better, I was honored and privileged to share the stage or virtual space with Chris a couple of times ago when we were talking about this very topic. Chris, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing very well, thank you.
Good, good. So I have had a pleasure to work with Chris on several projects. Chris is an ELT consultant. He is based in Scotland. He has extensive global experience. He has been working with British Council for years or decades. And last time I met Chris, we were in Baku and he gave a similar session. So once again, I for sure know you're in for a treat. I'm just looking at the colleagues joining from all over the world, literally Malaysia, Indonesia, Egypt, Latvia. We are fully global. And based on the previous experiences, I know that the participants are going to help us shape a wonderful session with their inputs and questions. Something else that I would like to tell you about Chris, he is not working just for the British Council. He is a consultant for a number of organizations, one of them being Green Action ELT. So without further ado, I would like to hand over to Chris, and I will be back to the session towards the end of it so we can take over some questions. We can have small deep dives in some particular topics that you are interested in. Chris, such a pleasure to be with you again. Last year, this time, we were together at another conference in Sarajevo, where I'm currently based. It was about sustainability for ELT.
It was, and as you say, it was a year ago today. I got a
Exactly a
reminder
year
on
ago.
social media that a year ago I was in Sarajevo, and then here I am, or here we are. I'm in Scotland. Okay, let me make a start. I'll just say again what you said, Tatiana. I'm just looking at the list of countries. It's incredible. So virtually everywhere in the world, people are popping up. But I haven't seen anybody else from Scotland, which is where I'm sitting. And I'm going to talk about sustainability, and you'll see I'm going to take a fairly wide approach to it. But what I would say to you is, oh, hello from Stirling. We've got somebody from Scotland, even better. So before I share the slides, I say I'm sitting here in Scotland, and most people, if you say the word Scotland, associate it with well, with rain. Basically, they see it as a wet country, and generally it is quite a wet country. But interestingly, I live in a very remote place, and my water comes from the mountain behind my house. It comes down a spring. Well, for nearly 7 weeks this summer, we didn't have any rain, and I ran out of water. And if you said to someone running out of water in Scotland, people would say, no, 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 that doesn't happen. Well, it happens now. So this is a real clear and present danger that we have, I think. So, Tatiana, can you see the screen okay? See the slides?
Yeah.
I assume she can.
Yes, it's
You can.
just
Thank you.
perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so I just want to say a little bit about what I'm going to be talking about. There's basically about 6 areas. The first part is to answer the question, what is sustainability? That might seem a strange question in that you're here and sustainability is in the title, but there is a particular reason I want to ask that. Then I'm going to spend a little bit of time looking at the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Then I'm going to look at ways of embedding sustainability into your teaching practice. And I hope some people here will have already be doing this, have some ideas that we can share through the chat. I then want to look at ideas around making the classroom itself a sustainable place to work. I want to talk a bit about motivation and then give you some calls to action to get you moving on this if you're not already. I suspect because you've chosen to come to this session, many of you are already involved in the integration of sustainability themes into your teaching. Maybe for some people it's completely new. I don't know, of course, but at the end you will have some I was going to call it homework. Let's call it homework. Some things to take away, some calls to action is a better word, I think. That's a really difficult question. What is sustainability? So rather than asking you to answer it, I'd just like you to put yes or no or Y or N in the chat if you've ever actually tried to figure out what sustainability is. I tell you why. It's because a lot of people say, oh, yes, I try to be sustainable. Oh, I put sustainability into my classes. And I know if I then say to them, well, what is sustainability? They say, well, and they're not quite sure. So I think it is quite a big question. It's quite a difficult question to answer. So that's why I'm not going to ask you to answer it now in the chat. But I'm interested. I mean, just looking at the chat now, we've got lots of Y's or yeses and a few N's. And I think it's something if we're going to sort of say we are teaching sustainably, where we have a sustainable classroom, we need to be crystal clear what it is. But unfortunately, as I say, it's quite a tricky question to find an answer to. So this quotation at the top, I'm actually colorblind. It's either red or orange. I know that. Is from a report written in 1987 for the United Nations by Gro Harlem Brundtland, who was the Prime Minister of Iceland for many years. And it's quite a nice quote. If you pick out some bits of it, the needs of the present, the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. That's, we're not making life more difficult now, but equally, we want to be sure that our children and our grandchildren's grandchildren are also able to meet their own needs. So in general terms, I think that's quite a neat, even though it's it's by no means a new definition. I think it's quite a neat definition actually, and a lot of people still use it now. But in ELT, in English language teaching, it's a slightly different thing. That definition was just a general one basically for sustainability in general. What would you say if a teacher said this? If you just read that a second. I'll pick out some of the key words. The teacher says sustainability is about how we work in terms of how we use electricity, if we fly in our work, how we use paper, all the negative things, but also about the positive aspects, the educational opportunities that we have. Would you agree with that? Does that seem a sensible kind of area, some sensible areas for us to think about? Yeses are coming, lots of Y's, more or less. Yeah, I would say it's not watertight, makes total sense. I will tell the person who said that then, because they'll be very happy because you've got lots of agrees. Oh, we've got one no. Okay, to a great extent, absolutely. It's not a perfect structure, but it does make us think about the negative impacts that we have. We use a lot of paper, handouts, course books, notebooks, all this stuff. We use quite a lot of electricity, often to keep warm or to keep cold, depending on where you live in the world. And in some cases, air travel. I fly a lot for my job, and I used to feel guilty about it, but I've dealt with that now. I've dealt with the guilt around it. But studying abroad, all involves flying. But then all the educational opportunities, all that stuff we have as well, which kind of balances out. So there are two sides to this, effectively, to think about. But, and that's in Scotland where I live, it's not just about the environment. And I want to make that point quite strongly, because a lot of teachers think sustainability and environmental awareness or environmental education are the same thing. They're not. Care for the environment is just one aspect of sustainability. We'll explore this in a second. it tends to be the one that people focus on in their teaching. I mean, I spend a lot of time talking to ELT teachers and institutions, universities around the world about their sustainability education, what topics they put into classes. And 90% of the time, I guess, it's about the environment. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not criticizing people who teach about the environment. I'm just saying sustainability is more than the environment. The environment is something that's clear and visible to us. That's, I think, what it is. It's part of our lives, which is why people tend to get hold of it and use it. Another colleague talking about sustainability in ELT said to me, we need to prepare learners for uncertain futures. I mean, boy, the last 2 or 3 years in global politics, we need to understand uncertain futures. And so that's an interesting idea. Preparing our students, our learners, when they go out into the big bad world for a very uncertain future. And also, she said, we need to embed sustainable practices in our global profession to prepare ourselves for that future. The future for teachers is uncertain. Maybe 5 years ago, if I'd said, oh, we have an uncertain future, people would have said, nonsense, not at all. It will always be the same teaching English. And then something called COVID came along and our lives were turned upside down. In my case, in about 2 weeks, I had to become fluent in Zoom. The first 3 or 4 Zoom meetings I had were absolutely catastrophic. So I had no idea what I was doing. And that applies to most of us. So I think we should never say that our futures are fairly certain. We can't say that anymore, unfortunately. So it's another nice aspect of sustainability in ELT. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, I assume everybody has heard of them. You can put yeses or nos. Yep. Yep. Oh, so many yeses. Oh, Peter's there. Hello, Peter. So most of you have probably heard of them. Not much. That's a good answer, honest answer. Well, I'm not going to talk about them too much. And the link is there. You can find them there. You'll get access to the slides. You can just copy that link and you'll find the Sustainable Development Goals. But there they are, all 17 of them. I think if you actually spend some time, if you go to the website and you can click on each one by one, you will find that almost all of human life is there. Almost every aspect of our interactions as human beings is somehow covered there. Good health and well-being, reduced inequalities. Okay, we've got life on land, climate action, life below water. All these are around environmental issues. Sustainable cities. That's a nice one as well, isn't it? Decent work. Decent work. That's a nice goal, isn't it? So the great thing about these SDGs is you can find them all on one website. For each of those, as I say, you can click through. If you've never done so, go to it, find an hour or so, sit down with your computer, click. Okay, let's have a look at decent work. And you will find so much content there that you can very easily use in your classes. But this is here to make the point that sustainability is not just about the climate. There's lots and lots and lots of other things. So let's move forwards on that, bearing in mind the breadth of sustainability, or the depth, both of sustainability. So, embedding sustainability into your teaching practice. Any quick thoughts? Can anybody put any notes into what you're doing? Those of you who have tried it, just put 2 or 3 words. Anything at all? Or you can just say, yes, I'm doing it. Any quick thoughts? Debates, inclusion, avoid printing too much paper, quality education. Well, this is going so fast. You've got so many of you. Quality education. No war, that's a good one. Not to use too much paper. Letter to Earth. Inclusion, recycling. I'm going digital. Peace education. We need that more than ever at the moment, don't we? Stop plastic water bottles. Yep, gender balance. Women empowerment. Wow. So we've got this. So some of you may be teaching some of these topics or may have some of these topics in your course books without realizing they are part of sustainability. For example, you may find if you're teaching high school, kind of 17, 18, 19-year-olds, and you've got a chapter unit in your course book about careers, about how to find a good job, what to look for in a good job, what makes a job useful, What benefits would you expect to get from a job? That is one of the Sustainable Development Goals, decent jobs. So you're probably doing a lot of this already, but you may not have thought it's part of your sustainability work. You may think, oh, sustainability, that's the green stuff. Well, it is the green stuff, but much more beyond. So let's have a little bit of a think. And I will make this point, I think it's quite important. A lot of teachers worry. They think, yeah, I really want to do this. I really want to do this. I don't have time. Yeah, I'm aware of that, and I'm going to address that a little bit. You might feel you need support. Well, here is some support coming today, and there are other during the whole World Teachers' Day piece. There are other talks around sustainability, and the British Council websites have got a lot of content too, which I'll share with you at the end. And also, do remember, students may not always find the topics as interesting as we do, especially if you teach teenagers. If you teach teenagers, you'll get that. I don't know quite what teenagers do find interesting, so that motivation can be an issue. Working with course books, and most of us have a course book. You'll be surprised that you can find connections between things in the course book and the SDGs. I mentioned before, if you're teaching high school kids, there's probably a chapter around careers. Well, careers connects very nicely with decent jobs, which is one sustainable development goal, and it also connects possibly with sustainable cities as well, where people work. And sometimes we just need to make small tweaks and small changes. Okay, I can just mention that, or I can take that piece of text instead of this piece of text. It does take some time. It takes some creativity, but once you've done it, you've done it. And I talked about time before, but I know teachers are busy. Everything that you create, keep it, label it, put it in a folder, put it in a Google Drive, whether you're a paper person or a digital person, and share it. One thing I've learned over the past 6 or 7 years I've been working on ELT and sustainability is that teachers don't share things. I thought teachers were very sharing. Turns out they're not. So in your institution, in your grade year, however you're organized, have a folder, have a Google Drive, anything to do with sustainability, write it, save it. Somebody else can use it. That's how we save time. So sharing, collaboration and sharing, I think are very, very important. Whoops, sorry. For example, topics like this, if you're teaching primary, you may just have the opportunity on the lesson, the unit around going shopping with mum and dad, to just suggest substituting plastic bags with cloth bags or paper bags. If you've got a unit about holiday travel and it's suggested they're going to fly, you could just have a very small discussion saying, could you go on holiday closer to home? Could they take a train? Is there another way they could go? Healthy food, good quality food, nutrition, and health and well-being are part of sustainability. We've got chapters on food in virtually every course book there is. Clothes. Where do people's clothes come from? We all talk about fast fashion or cheap fashion. Cheap fashion has a very high price for the people that make it in many cases. And there we're talking about decent jobs. So all of that's important. We talked about jobs, health and well-being, student well-being and teacher well-being are becoming very powerful topics. That's also covered by sustainability. So as I say, you've got a whole breadth of areas that you can, with a little bit of creativity, that you can explore. Oops, sorry, the mouse is completely out of control. So, sorry, it's a new mouse and it's uncontrollable. There we are. Now, as well as using your course books, you can find these hooks in your course books. You can also write your own material. Now, writing your own material is not for everyone. It's not for everyone, not because of skills, but because of time. It does take longer. And I think if you are wanting to develop your own content, you should try to work in a small team. Because if 3 or 4 people working together will support each other, help each other, you'll manage time better and it's less stressful. Working alone can be very stressful. So thinking about writing your own content, use the Sustainable Development Goals. The work has been done for you. The Sustainable Development Goals website is an educational website. It's not designed for English language teaching, but it is designed to educate. You know, sometimes when I do these kind of workshops, a teacher will say to me, "Yeah, but I don't do this." What do you mean? And I'll say to them, what's your job? I'm an English teacher. My reaction to I'm an English teacher is to say you're not. You're a teacher. And that's what I'm saying. The Sustainable Development Goals have a massive educational power. They're a tremendous resource. So take a look at those. Think about relevance. Students will engage with something that is relevant to them. And the problem with a lot of these sustainability issues is they can seem quite distant, quite a long way away. So make sure you try to get something relevant, something that's happening in your town, village, in the country that people know about. I think that's very, very important. In terms of the environment specifically, there is this term, or three terms here in one really, eco-hopelessness, eco-grief, or eco-anxiety. Particularly teenagers can feel very emotional about environmental issues. And I think we need to be very careful to make sure there is always a positive aspect of what we're doing. We don't want to drive people into depression. We don't want people to say, there's no point in doing this, it's too late. That's not true. So I think we need to say, if we do this, we can achieve that in terms of motivating people. One of the issues I think, which I will address at the end, is about images, which we'll talk about at the end. Think about also the complexity of reading text. You can find reading texts, or indeed listening text, in lots of places around sustainability, but often it's complex, not just in terms of the language, but also in terms of the concepts. It can be complex. Obviously, it depends on the age of your students. If you're working with adults who are C1 level, you don't have to really worry about this. But if you're working with younger students who have less developed, less mature levels of understanding, or lower levels of English, you need to think about complexity of texts. I've put L1 question mark there. I know not everybody agrees with me. That's just how life is. I'm a great believer in the use of the first language. Giving a text in the first language, saying, read this text. Let's talk about the text. Finish the text. Now, let's take the ideas in the text and make a poster in English, or write a blog in English, or write an email, whatever it is, in English. By using the first language, you can deal with a lot of the complexity, both of concepts and language. And remember, as I've written there, there are some concepts that may be concepts around sustainability that your students may not know in their own language. It depends on their level of intellectual maturity, their age, basically. So be very careful with that. There can be quite complex concepts. Again, the first language can help. The UN SDGs site has quite a lot of different languages on there. The texts are in, I don't know how many languages, maybe about 10 languages. You may be lucky, yours is one, or you may not be, depends where you live. But if not, you can find other texts. And be careful with images, particularly around climate. There was an article in the Guardian newspaper in the UK fairly recently called "No More Dead Polar Bears, Please." Because there was a kind of school of thought that if we scare people, say, look what we're doing to the Arctic, look, we're killing all these polar bears, it will make people engage. Maybe it does in some cases. In other cases, it just upsets people so much they disengage. So be very careful with images. It goes back to what I said before about depressing people or making people feel they can't do anything. So I've got a few topics here that I think are suitable for that we might engage, sustainability topics for ELT, that might be useful for us. And climate's only one of them. Our relationship with food and animals. Nutrition, food is one of the SDGs. And I think it's a really great educational point for English teachers and all teachers to think about where our food comes from. So, yeah, you can interpret that in many different ways, but nutrition, food. There's an environmental twist. I actually went to the supermarket yesterday, wanted to buy some apples, and I found about 8 different types of apples, let's say 10. 9 of them came from South Africa. There's nothing wrong with South Africa, make good apples, but we actually grow apples in the UK as well. We don't need to have that food miles. These apples would be flown, they'd be brought here. There's an environmental impact, negative environmental impact. So I bought the 1 pack of British apples, not because I'm particularly patriotic, the opposite actually, but because I want to reduce food miles. And South African apples are great in South Africa. So where does the food come from? Water. Water, too much water, too little water have major impacts across the world, particularly in the global south. But as I said at the beginning, also in Scotland. I didn't have any water for about 7 weeks, which was interesting. So water, well-being, your well-being, my well-being. It's one of the SDGs. Getting students into the idea that in their class, if they spot someone who they think is struggling, seems upset, maybe they should speak to them. Maybe they should speak to you and say, I think she's a bit upset today. Whatever it is, all about well-being. Cities, towns and villages. How we can make our cities, towns and villages better places to live. More transport, cleaner transport. How can jobs be created locally? Keeping healthy, keeping well. What can I do? That's a fantastically motivating question to ask. Say, let's talk about poverty, which is the next one, no global poverty. What can I do? It may not be obvious, but then after a few minutes, students will say, well, this is something we could do. That's something we can do, whether it's raising money, whatever it is. So again, another goal, excellent education, a sustainable development goal. That's on you, no pressure. You're part of the excellent education machine. We all have a role to play, and I'm sure you do your absolute best. But sometimes it's just nice to sit back from the classroom and think, I wonder, this might be a bit more effective. Or to speak to the school principal and say, maybe we could try this. So there again, you have all these sustainable development goals that you can, theme that you can very easily put into your classes. And there's a couple of examples, real examples. The first one I've already given you. SDG 8 is called Decent Work. Teenagers discussing careers. What can they expect from employers? What would they hope to get from an employer? Or a CLIL lesson, in other words, a lesson around content that is taught in English around the theme of citizenship, could focus on SDG 16, peace, justice, strong institutions. So there are lots and lots of angles that you can take. And I keep saying this, but the SDGs are a good place to start because, I mentioned all of human life is there. Climate change. We kind of talk about climate change. It is, it has its own SDG and it goes into a couple of others. But sometimes we don't always know quite what to do with it in class. So obviously one approach with this is to try and consider what causes it. And there are lots of causes of climate change. Some of them global, some are national, some are local, some are personal. Now, the issue of personal impact, we all have a climate footprint, and the mitigation of it would be reducing it. But I'm kind of cautious with that because it's not actually our fault, really. So I think what I don't want teachers to do is to make their students feel guilty or to feel guilty themselves. As I said, I fly a lot for work and much more than most people do. And I had a period of time feeling guilty about it, but I do other things that are much more environmentally friendly. For example, I generate my own electricity, most of it from solar panels. So that kind of makes me feel better. I don't drive very much. So, there are balances, but there are certain personal impacts that I think we can discuss with students, but let's make people feel guilty. Maybe we want students to understand the results of climate change, what actually happens around water, food supplies, sanitation, conflict should be common there, sanitation, conflict, physical health. There are lots and lots of impacts. And also, I think it's important, particularly for those of us working in the global north, in the wealthier economies, is about equity of impact and response. The impact of climate change is much more significant in the global south, particularly sub-Saharan Africa and some parts of Southeast Asia. And If you're sitting in the global north, you might think, well, it doesn't affect me. It's nothing to do with me. Well, first of all, I don't think that's a very good response. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't matter. But actually, as I said, in Scotland, not having water, not raining for 7 weeks was an absolute catastrophe for us. And now people in Scotland are saying, actually, it's a real thing, this. It actually, yeah, it matters. So local impact and local responses, and what can I do? Again, are great questions. And I've noticed in the last 18 months in Scotland, because of the lack of water, which is not a thing in Scotland at all. It rains most of the time. I know if you people here are Scottish, they probably agree it does rain quite a lot. It did, but it's rained much less now. So it's come to us. So it comes to all of us. Okay, activity types. Can anyone, I'll look in the chat, suggest types of activities that you might use? Just put a name of a type of activity to put all of this into practice. Anything you can think of. Project, good. Flashcards, energizer. We all need that. Project work, debate, drilling, debate. Debates. You're keen on debates, aren't you? Mind maps. Ooh, like mind maps. Community service. That's good. This is going so fast, I'm beginning to feel a bit sick, actually. It's going so quickly. Running, field trips, all presentations, graphic organizers. Hello from Georgia. Project-based learning. Woo! Discussions. Yeah, discussions. Community engagement. There's some very good stuff coming here. Now you've done better than me. I'm a bit embarrassed to show my next slide now because you're ahead of me. PBL, project-based learning. So yeah, I can't look at it anymore because the feed is going berserk. Debates, discussions, yes. Project-based learning, absolutely. In so many of those areas, project-based learning, where there's a physical outcome that generates language that then you then reflect on and say, interesting how you describe that. What about describing it this way? So that kind of work. Projects, as I said, which can projects can cover so many different areas: discussions, debates, and community projects, community interaction. That's a good one, isn't it? I've got a much less ambitious slide, I think now. Whoops, I still can't control my new mouse. My thoughts: standard reading, listening questions, and a follow-up activity. Yeah, a reading text, a listening text, a little bit of pre-reading, pre-listening, a few while listening or while reading questions, and then a follow-up activity. You can make it very language or skills focused. I mean, language work, there are so many things you can do about language. If you want to do some functional work around expressing opinions, if you want to do some work, if they're doing mini presentations, which some of you suggested, you can do work on sequences, firstly, secondly, thirdly, lastly, or you can do work on the what I call navigation language in a presentation, saying, I've got 4 points. Firstly, moving on. Okay, the next point is, and finally, that kind of stuff. You can teach that kind of language. 21st century skills. I mean, I would argue that sustainability is designed for critical thinking. It really is. It lends itself so well to really getting your students to deep dive down into something and explore the causes, the reasons, and some possible solutions. It's designed for that. In-class project work with an output, posters, presentations, vlogs, some kind of performance, whatever the output is. For me, projects work when there is an output, whether it's a physical output, as I say, it could be a presentation or poster, or a spoken or output of some kind. So in-class project, but the fun stuff is the last one. Out-of-class projects, again, with an output. On the environmental side, cleaning the beach, cleaning the parks, picking up, and you can, even with primary kids, you can get them out to a park and they pick up litter or they pick up whatever's on the ground and they make a note. We picked up 75 cans, soft drink cans. We picked up 100 crisp packets, whatever it is people pick up. And there's an output for young learners. There's an output, just a categorization thing. And outreach to schools as well. If you're in a high school, outreach to primary schools. Telling your students to produce very simple presentations that they can take to grade 1, grade 2 students. That's a great activity Because if you're in high school and your students are kind of B2, C1, they're feeling quite confident in English. It's a really interesting idea to ask them to lower their English to respond to the audience of grade threes who perhaps only have A2, A1, A2 level of English. So you can have lots of fun with these things, but you know more than I do. And we've got 82 unread items in the chat, I think. So you're bombarding me with stuff, which is good. But what you notice about that, actually, I'll just stay there. You notice about those activities is that they're the stuff, the activities, those activities, things that we do already, that we've been doing for years. There is no magic about teaching sustainability. There are no dark arts of sustainable teaching, sustainability teaching. All you're doing really is choosing a different topic. The actual activity types are the same. There's no magic. There's nothing special, because sometimes we say, oh, I can't do this. I can't do this. It's too complicated. It's not. You do reading comprehension, listening comprehensions, project work, guided writing, discussions, all this stuff you do every month. That's what you do, teaching English. All I'm saying is, can I put a sustainability twist on the content? Now we're going to talk about the sustainable classroom. Whoops, my mouse is going absolutely mad today. And I'm not going to ask you for any thoughts, because you'll go mad again. I've got too many thoughts. I'm over attacked by thoughts. I think in the sustainable classroom, the actual physical classroom, there's a few things we can think about. We've already talked about the negative sides, how we use energy. I mean, it's an obvious thing. There's a climate impact. Do we always switch the air conditioning off? Do we always switch the heating off? Do we always switch the lights off? Sometimes I go into a school early morning or the end of the day, and you look in and there's lots of little red lights shining or orange lights shining, because people are charging things or they'd have to monitor on all that stuff. It's small, but it makes an impact. Our relationship with paper. Yeah, I mean, handouts. Wow, the problem with handouts is they have a very short career, don't they? If you give out some kind of form you want students to fill in, or gap fill or something, they do it in 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and that's probably the lifespan of that piece of paper. They never look at it again. They might put it in a folder, maybe they'll look at it before the exam or something, or just throw it away. I think I personally do not use any handouts at all. I mean, I work mainly with teachers in training, and particularly training school inspectors. My inspectors do not get any handouts from me. Paper handouts. We do PDFs, we do stuff online, virtual handouts. Travel to and from school, there's an impact. Study travel is an impact. Food waste, all the horrible negative stuff. More fun on the positive side. A sustainability hub. I think every classroom should have a notice board or something where we put stuff about sustainability. It could be a poster, it could be some photographs, it could be some links or something. It could be a link to a video or a webinar. Everything goes there. Could be in the hall. I was in a school actually in Azerbaijan recently with Tatiana, and they have a big sort of sustainability hub in the common area, the lobby of the school. Anyone can put anything. Teachers can, students can, parents, anybody wants it. Doesn't have to be in English necessarily. It's just to keep sustainability in people's minds. Well-being, focus on well-being. Food quality, health, the things that we've spoken about. All this stuff is in class, well-being. Say to students, if you think one of your friends or colleagues looks a bit gloomy, then let me know, yeah? Or have a chat with them, particularly around exam time. And if you've got the high stakes exams, age 16, something like that, it's a horrible thing in the best possible world. And it's very important we do look out for students and for teachers as well, come to think of it. This well-being is not just about students, it's about your colleagues and about you as well. It works for all of us, I think, basically. The quality of food that's served in schools, where it's served, and general keeping good health as a focus. Yeah, most classrooms now have posters about good health, eat well, do exercise, don't smoke, all that stuff. But it's not always realised it's part of sustainability. Another thing I need to mention is this, AI. Those of you who know me know that I have strong opinions about AI that I'm not going to mention now. I would say AI is a very powerful tool. And for sustainability, you can get lots and lots of content very quickly. but it is not very planet friendly. The servers where all your data and everyone else's data is shared and where the AI does its thinking use millions of litres of water to be cooled. It is a real challenge. I went to a talk, I think it was last year, and I don't have the figure, so I can't quote it, saying that already the impact of AI is worse than the impact of global aviation already. My argument about all this, or my suggestion is, we're still in the early days of AI. We don't really understand it yet, if we're honest. We're still in the early days. So we have an opportunity now to get into the habit of using it in a sustainable way and of supporting our students to use it in a sustainable way. Basically, it's about the prompts. AI is not Google. It's not a search engine. And I see teachers making bang, 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 or students, oh, I've written 50 prompts. 50 prompts? You need one prompt. Because it's the number of prompts that that uses it more and therefore makes it less sustainable. So think about how you use AI. Think about how you can get your students using AI. My son, ironically, works for a Canadian AI company in the UK, earns lots of money, which is a very nice thing about AI. And I talked to him about it, and he said, yeah, it's about the prompts. He said, if you only need one or two prompts. He said, I said, what can we do? He said, teach your teachers how to write efficient prompts and get them to teach their students. That's probably quite good advice. I would say that because my son gave it to me. But I think that actually does make sense. So do think about that. I mean, it's a great tool, obviously, but it's not necessarily a friend of our planet, I don't think, in the end of the day. Motivation. Do you think, look at chat now, do you think your students are interested in this stuff? Y or N? Is it a topic that will interest your students? Be honest. Don't think it would be nice if they did. Well, someone's written why, which is good. Depends on the teacher to make it interesting. Yeah, no pressure, but you're right. I agree. Sometimes nice, obviously. There's lots of yeses because it's real. Depends which part of the world you're in. That's a good answer as well. Okay, so we've got quite a few yeses. Depends on teachers' methodology. For some who are neurodivergent, yes, especially the texts that are involved in it. So we've got plenty of yeses. Well, I half agree with you because I think particularly around climate change, there's always been this idea that teenagers are really engaged with it and really want to find out more, want to talk about it. I'm not convinced. I think if we ask them about it, they engage. That's the father of two ex-teenagers. They're not teenagers anymore. I don't think my sons, two brothers, sat together talking about sustainability very much. I think they talked about their girlfriends and about football and about all the other things. I don't think they ever got around to talking about sustainability. I might be wrong. I personally, based on not very much evidence, but some evidence, think we may have perhaps over assumed teenagers' interest particularly. And I think also with adults. And I was writing another talk yesterday for a conference next week, and I found an article from Deloitte, the big consultancy company, who do a consumer survey every year. And they found out in the UK, I don't know about other countries, in the UK, interest is dropping in sustainability. People are getting less interested in it. Tatiana's appeared. I'm winding up, Tatiana. Don't panic. You know me, I talk a lot. So, as I say here, not everyone is Greta Thunberg. Is it a priority for your learners or an annoyance? What aspect might motivate them? And think about media, text, image, music. That's a way into it. There's a surprising number of songs about sustainability. If you actually take the time to Google films, what's that? Finding Nemo is about sustainability. I sat that with my sons without realizing that when they were little. So there are ways into it, but think about ways to get to them. And I put anger very briefly there because, oh dear, the stupid mouse. I should have to get my old one out. I'm going to go forward to anger. Now, you might think that making your students angry is a bad idea. As a general rule of thumb, you don't want angry students. But again, for another talk, I did a bit of research and I found these two papers, which are referenced at the end, from some one Australian university. And they found out that being angry about the environment in particular makes people engage with it. But very interestingly, the second line, experiencing eco anger predicts better mental health outcomes. It's good for you. That's, I mean, if you're into academic papers, find those two and have a read of them. It's absolutely fascinating because I always thought anger, oh, I don't want my students angry. It's bad enough to keep them, smiling. But there's been a lot of research around this, and it does seem that anger had been seen as a bad thing, but now it actually, for sustainability, does help people engage, which is quite interesting, I think. Well, I think it's interesting anyway. So you can take a look at the articles. So here's my calls to action. Will you, each month, adapt at least one lesson and share it for sustainability? Will you create at least one lesson and share it around sustainability? Will you develop at least one sustainability project and share it? That number 3 might be a bit ambitious, but each month at least can you do number 1 and number 2? Do we have a deal? Yes or no? Oh, the yeses are coming in now. Deal. Oh, you're lovely people. You're really nice. No one said no yet. Oh, that's good. Brilliant. I'm not going to check because I don't know where you live, so I can't check. But I really think setting yourself or your year group or your institution these kind of goals, but share it. Don't just say, I've done that. Because teachers, oh, I've written that, you're not having that. This is mine. I don't think that's very productive, but it's something that teachers do. So moving forward slightly. You've got a bunch of references there. These are British Council resources. The first one is Green Action ELT, which is it's a not-for-profit, so I'm not promoting anything commercial. It's a completely free organisation. I'm on the board. We have a great webinar library, pre-recorded webinars all around sustainability. Lots of British Council resources. The BC has done a lot of work on this. There is also a MOOC as well around embedding sustainability in your teaching. So again, when you've got some time, go to these websites, click through, and you'll find all sorts of exciting stuff. Those are the references. The two angry ones are the ones at the bottom, and the first one is the report, the initial report on environment and development. And that's it. So we'll have a few questions, then you can probably see from the picture what I'm going to do next. Have a cup of coffee. So I shall stop sharing now. So I'm looking at comments. Thank you. Thanks, Chris. Thank you, Peter. Very kind of you. Questions. Tatiana, what have we got?
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Chris. I have a number of questions, reflections, and the chat is absolutely buzzing. We
I
have
think my computer's
more
on
than
fire, actually.
1,000 people from across the globe. Teachers are so engaged, so much knowledge shared, so many questions, so much food for thought.
Choose some easy ones.
Yeah, something that I would just like to repeat, two things. When you say it doesn't have to do anything with me, it has to do everything with each one of us. So for me, this would be the biggest takeaway. And
But sorry, the point is, students say, and teachers say, nothing. This is nothing to do with me. We have to demonstrate that it is. That's the really, and very, very briefly, some of you may have heard of Daniel Goleman from UCLA, I think, who wrote about emotional intelligence was his big thing. He's also done a book about eco-intelligence, and in it he suggests that one skill we should teach our students is to see what they can't see. So you may be living in Sarajevo, so you can't see what's happening in another country that's in the middle of a climate crisis, or where gender equality is not a thing. So it's getting students to say, not to say it's nothing to do with it, no, you can't see it here, but it's happening over there. And I think that Daniel's idea about seeing what you can't see is brilliant. Sorry, I'm interrupted.
But I also remember when we were discussing the climate change last time, you said you don't have to learn about it. You don't have to read about it. You just need to look through your window. And it was February and I was in Sarajevo and it was 20 degrees.
Which is not normal, is it?
So absolutely. I could go on and on with so many questions, thoughts, but what I would like you to touch upon, two things. How can we support the ministries, the governments? Because I know that you have been working with a number of ministries of education or other ministries to integrate sustainability into the regular curriculum, to make it more
Okay.
systemic and more systematic, because from what I know, it's happening fairly sporadically, and you need an enthusiastic teacher to make it part of their teaching.
Okay. Well, very briefly, and again, I've just written something about this. I always used to think that bottom up ideas coming from teachers upwards was the way forwards. I no longer believe that. I think if we're serious about embedding sustainability, including climate change, into our teaching, it has to come down from the ministry. Now, I know from having just written about something, at the moment, just under 60% of global ministries of education have got commitments to climate change education in their policies. They are statements made by policies, by governments. But that doesn't apply to English language teaching. It applies to general education, maybe in geography, it would be, or science, or biology, something like that. I think all of us who are English teachers need to lobby. We need to speak to our school principals. We need to speak to our inspectors. We need to speak to people who have agency and say, we want climate change or sustainability education to become part of the English language teaching curriculum. Basically, we want to be told we have to do it. That sounds a slightly odd thing to say, but teachers are normal human beings, or most of us are. We will do roughly what the ministry tell us to, because that's our job. We may not always agree with it. So the idea of the ministry saying we want you to do these 10 sessions on sustainability in grade 5 English, will do it. So I think the British Council has a very big role to play. That's a role that they're engaged in. But I think we just need to be able to drive that narrative so ministries start to push it on us. I think imposition is the only way forward. I know that sounds a little bit dictatorial, but this is a bit of an emergency in terms of climate and other stuff, in terms of water, in terms of gender, in terms of domestic violence, all these other things. We've got to engage.
Yeah. I would agree that we need a very strong policy framework
Yeah.
that's going to be implemented in the classroom environment, and then we're going to see the big impact. Okay.
So find people who have agency and say, okay, take this up to the ministry. School inspectors have agency. They are the ministry's representatives on earth, basically. So going to them and saying, look, what can you do? That's what
While supporting that with your own example and classroom
Exactly.
experience, I think that
Absolutely. It's kind of a two-way thing. The two things come together, but I still think that obligation, top-down obligation, yeah.
I would agree that we need to strengthen top-down approach.
It's a policy issue.
Yeah. And another thing, it goes back to your previous comment about seeing what we cannot see and dealing with so many diversified students. How to teach sustainability and climate action to students from very diversified cultural background, especially if we are talking about disadvantaged populations and students that live in extreme poverty, how to introduce them to think about sustainability if they are struggling with severe temperatures. We know it's happening in, say, Brazil. We know how many students are not going to their classes because the temperatures are so extreme. So are there any thoughts on that one?
Well, I'd stretch that further. In many low-income societies, teachers don't attend school because they have jobs as well. Either in the household or outside. So so there are so many reasons. All the standard of healthcare is poor. So when people get sick, they get very sick, or there's not medical provision, so they have to care for sick grannies and things like that. So all these issues. I think it's just context is everything. I know that's a cliche in ELT, but I think it's true. We have to be able. When you have mixed cultural classes, it's all context is always difficult. But there are connections. As I said, the SDGs are pretty much all of human existence. There. And there are connections. There are things that connect us. So Yeah, somebody in a sub-Saharan African country may be experiencing severe drought or severe flooding, or sometimes both, which is a very particular thing. But there are other parts of the world, if you've got people from around the world in an online class or something, who experience climate impacts in other ways. There is a continuity. I think what matters more is the idea that this is nothing to do with me is nonsense. That's the thing. It is to do with everyone. You may not have mass. I mean, in the UK, we don't have huge climate impacts, but we do have poverty. We have people without jobs. Our healthcare system is not as strong as it was. So there are things to worry about in all societies. There are other societies where healthcare is very good, but there's not much equality, gender equality. So it's so important that we just get away from this is nothing to do with me. That's all I can say about that, and that's done through example, I suppose.
I would just add not now or not yet, but the change is so rapid that we all need to be very concerned and very active and proactive. Unfortunately, we need to wrap up.
That's okay.
Yeah, I would literally I could go on, and I think that we need a like 2-day conference just on this topic, which I hope we will be able to organize.
Excellent.
Chris, thanks so much. Always a
You're
pleasure.
very welcome. It's a pleasure to be hosted by you, even though you've heard a lot of it before, I think. But
It's good to have you on our sessions very regularly, so I can always follow the new thoughts, the new questions that you are sharing with the
well, I
team.
don't know whether any of it's new. I'm just becoming more dictatorial about it. That's it. I'm not accepting no anymore. No, you
Mm,
do have time. I don't have time. Yes, you do. Find time because we're in
yeah,
trouble, basically.
exactly. And
It's a bit like this. It's a
thanks
bit
so
like
much
this.
for calling the teachers to the action. I like your approach, giving some concrete tasks so people can actually do
Yeah,
something.
I
And
think I think that helps. Yeah.
yeah, I would really like to thank to all of the teachers from across the globe. I know it's Saturday.
Absolutely.
You need some rest, but I think it was very important for us to be here to share these thoughts, to have some very concrete tools that you can use from today in your daily life, with your family, with your friends, and from Monday with your students. Um, you can check out a number of resources that we have on our global platform, Teaching English. There are a number of publications, there are a number of courses about climate action and climate change and sustainability. It's like a Chinese menu. So please go there, follow up, and if you want to learn more and to get more of the tools, more of the strategies, just go out there, sign up, and you will be in for another treat. Many thanks to our amazing moderators, to our backup support, Joanna, Melissa, on the Zoom, and Lou and Iman on Facebook. And again, we need to wrap up. Have a lovely day. Enjoy the rest of the
Thank you.
conference. And you will be back in about 15 minutes, I believe. We are continuing to talk about climate action, but you will be able to learn more about role play to change climate action. Have a good day once again. Warm greetings from Sarajevo. Personally, I'm now leading to a face-to-face event, face-to-face conference where we will be discussing sustainability and in ELT. Goodbye, everybody.